Today's guest, Dorothy Husen. We're talking about healing to live and living to heal. Dorothy, in her book, Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma, My Journey from Surviving to Thriving, she talks about her story of how she healed from childhood trauma and how that healing has led her to help others. So we're going to do a deep dive into what that process looked like for her. So after our introduction, you will get to meet Dorothy and learn more about healing to live and living to heal. Welcome, Dorothy.
Hi, Dr. Lisa. Thank you for having me.
So excited that you are here. You are a mind and body coach, and you got to this place as a result of healing your childhood trauma. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of going back and revisiting your past in order to give you the healing that you need in order to help people today?
Yeah, it's a very interesting process to go back into your past because all the time I growing up and as an adult before I started healing, I tried to avoid my past. I was scared of going back there because I didn't want to remember.
Yeah.
And so when the time came, it was quite a shock actually to find out that there was a lot of healing that I needed to do. And so that's the thing about going back is the memories got stuck in my body. And so when I went back, I actually had to learn how to be in my body and connect to my body. And so that's that mind-body connection. It wasn't really cognitive going back. It was more going back into the shame, the bad feelings that were in my body.
And
And
so when you say in your body, I know what that feels like to have that pain and shame and disappointment stuck in the body, but it manifested some way. So how did that manifest for you in your body, knowing that it was there, determining that it was there? How did it manifest?
it manifested by me dissociating out of my body. So I had a really difficult time until I healed to stay present, to connect to people emotionally, because I wasn't connected to my body. I wasn't connected to my own emotions. So I had this longing to be a friend, to have a friend. Had this longing to connect to people. But whenever I try, I would get scared because there was also this fear of connecting to people. And so I would, not knowingly, subconsciously, I would back away. So I was this push and pull to, I want to connect to people, but I can't. And I didn't understand at the time, but that's what was going on.
And so when you realized what was happening, and this is beautiful because with this back and forth that you were going through, you mentioned that it wasn't until you were 48 that you went to your first therapy session. What prompted you to seek therapy? Because you know how hard it is for us to even admit that we need to get help and to actually get that help.
Yeah, I didn't do it very willingly. I actually was in school to become a therapist, and as a requirement, we were required to do our own personal therapy. So I had made it clear when I called my therapist, I said, I just need this for school. I don't really need therapy for anything else. It's more educational. And my first session, She said, Dorothy, I think you have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a shock, and yet at the same time, a relief, because
So
down,
you're going to check a box. You're just going in there. I'm going to check my box so I can get credit in class. And you hear PTSD, shock and relief. What happens next? Oh my gosh.
yeah, deep down inside, I knew that she was probably right, because I had never really been comfortable with myself, and I just knew that probably something was connected to my childhood trauma, because I knew I did have childhood trauma, and I wrote it down in my intake sheet, so I was very honest about it. But when she asked me to talk about it, I dissociated, and I froze. I went into freeze. That
Yes.
you've heard of fight, flight, freeze, or
Yes.
faint.
Yep.
So I froze like a deer in the headlights, and I couldn't talk. And she said, that's okay. You don't have to talk about it. But can you start writing about it? Do you think maybe you can start writing about it? And so that's how I started. I started with journaling.
That is amazing. So, on the intake sheet, you were honest, you were truthful about what you had experienced in your past, but this is the first time that you got to unpack it. Actually, that it was named, right? That it had a label. And so, did you continue in therapy, or was it a one and done? How did is the journaling what turned into your book, Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma?
A lot of my journaling did, but the first 6 months of journaling is all I could do to get it out there. It started coming out in a way that even surprised me. Like, sometimes I couldn't stop writing, and I still couldn't talk about it, but I would bring my journal into my therapist once a week, and she would read it. And so there was that validation, that witness. She witnessed it, even though we still didn't talk, because I still couldn't talk about it. So I still journal today. It's easier for me to journal. I didn't develop, because of my trauma, I didn't develop very good speaking skills, although I'm learning now. But it didn't come naturally. So I'm better at writing my feelings than I am talking about them.
So you're like me. I can write a letter, a beautiful letter, an eloquent letter, and pour everything into it. But the conversation can sometimes be a little more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So writing is therapeutic. So when you mention transgenerational trauma, talk to us about what that means. Because I'm certain that someone watching and listening, their curiosity is already piqued, but when they hear what transgenerational means in the trauma, they may find themselves there.
Right. Yeah. So transgenerational, also, you might hear it as intergenerational or just generational trauma. It's what happened to our parents and our grandparents, how they survived the difficulties and the struggles in their lives that still affects us. It gets passed through the relationship between the parent and child. So a child's brain, when we're born, we are born to attach, and we're not fully developed. Our brain isn't quite fully developed. That's why we have that long developmental phase to adulthood, which ends around age 26 that we know now. So our brains develop through the relationship between the child and our parents, our caregivers. And that's how the trauma gets passed, because all those fears and all those struggles and the traumas that our parents went through, they're passing on to us how they dealt with it, how they dealt with their trauma. So my mom was a World War II survivor, and the way she dealt with her trauma was through suppressing her fears, suppressing her emotions, and fighting. Like, she was a fighter. She
Yeah.
was like, and she was like, I fought my way to survive that war. And the problem is that I grew up in Southern California, where there was no war.
Yes.
There's no armies fighting each other. And so she was very kind of controlling. It was out of love, but she expected obedience, because to her, obedience was life or death.
Yes.
And so I grew up just being really meek and reserved and quiet. And I looked to her. I became dependent on her to tell me what to do. And then when I was sexually abused when I was a child, not by any family members, but it was outside the family. But when that happened, like, I didn't have my mom to help me deal with it. I didn't know how to fight. I didn't know how to express what happened to me, so that's how my PTSD developed, because I just started dissociating every time I get scared.
And so did you ever share with her the trauma that you experienced at any point?
She knew about it, but we never talked about it. We never ever talked about it. So my memories, I wrote about it in my book. I wrote in my first journal entries were all about what happened. And my memories are that, oh, my mom's mad at me. I must have done something wrong. Why do I have to talk to this, police woman? She's mad at me too. Everybody's staring at me. Why do I have to go to the doctor? And I had no clue as to what was happening. And I never understood. As
Because
an
there wasn't
adult,
a conversation. There wasn't a
yeah,
conversation. You didn't understand, because it wasn't explained that we're trying to get this person and we're trying to, I don't know, press charges and whatever the case was. You didn't have the benefit of the conversation, and not realizing your mom in her own way was fighting for you, but
yeah,
you didn't know that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know it. And then what happened when I became a mom and raised my daughter is I still was scared. I still didn't know how to talk about anything that was going on with her, even, like, um, she'd get angry or upset because I wouldn't let her go to a party. And I just, like, say, no, that's it. We're not talking about it. But I couldn't attune to her feelings because I never learned how to attune to my feelings. And that's how the trauma gets passed on. It's not the actual trauma, but it's how we learn to deal with it, and in unhealthy ways that
Yeah.
gets passed on.
And so, how do you help others deal with their trauma, recognize it, name it, and heal?
Yeah, it's a beautiful process because it's about reconnecting to your body. The This stuff gets stuck in our body. And so when we get scared or triggered, we jump out of our body. Like, even my mom, when she went into that fight, mode, I would go into freeze. She would go into fight, but we're not in our bodies. We are not in tune with really what's going on. We're in survival mode. So the
So,
process,
is that when sometimes when you hear people say, "Oh, I'm in the zone," and they're just there, they're not even really connected at that point, but just kind of going through the motions? Is that similar?
yeah, the zone I'm not really familiar with.
Okay.
That sounds like more like a good thing. Like,
Okay.
you're in the flow, like you're in the zone. That's not what fight, flight, freeze, or faint feels like.
Okay.
That
But the disconnection and disassociation is just freezing up, not doing anything, getting frightened and withdrawing, or just running away from it altogether.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And the thing about our bodies is our bodies live in the present. So
Mm,
our bodies are the greatest resource we have to reconnect ourselves and ground ourselves into the present. And that's the process of healing. It's
mm,
going inward and connecting to your body. It's a great resource that when, especially if you've been traumatized, you disconnect from your body because you think that those feelings inside of you are bad. They're bad feelings, but they're not. They're
and
just feelings.
and
And
so connecting is talking about it. Is that us talking about what we're feeling, and can you just
partly,
walk us through? I know you're not doing therapy. I want
partly,
everybody to be clear, but how can we reconnect?
okay, you start by breathing. You start by slowing your breath down because when you go into fight, flight, freeze, and faint, you don't have control over it. Your cortisol goes up, your adrenaline goes up, your heartbeat goes up. All these physiological changes happen really quick. But the one thing that you can control is your breath. So if you just start taking nice, slow, deep, conscious breathing, like in your nose, out your mouth, slow it down, that's where you have your control. And your breath works as that anchor that will start connecting you to your body. It's the doorway that brings you into your inner world. Your mind is focused out here and in the past, in the future, and things I need to do and what's going on out here. But your breath can bring your mind into your inner world and calm your mind down and connect your mind to your body. And it's really that simple. Um, but it just, a lot of people just, don't know, or I didn't know. But it really is that simple. And so that's the first thing I teach my clients. Start with 1 minute a day, just slow, deep breathing, close your eyes. And after a few minutes, you become more aware of what's going on the inside of your body.
By breathing,
Mm-hmm.
closing the eyes, and just focusing, because that pulls everything in, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to everything being on the outside and worried about what's going on.
Yes.
Who would have thought that breathing is centering and grounding and allowing us to reconnect on the inside? Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think we
Hmm.
do kind of intuitively know that because when people are upset, a lot of times they'll say, just take a deep breath,
Yeah.
just breathe, look into my eyes, breathe with me. And it works.
And
It
we're not even realizing we're being therapeutic at that time. You're right. Because just breathe. Wait a minute. Just take a minute. Just breathe. Just breathe. And we do that. And
Mhm.
I call it we talk people in off the ledge, right? We
Mhm.
just breathe. Wow.
Yeah, you're calming them down, you're bringing them down, you're connecting to them. And that's another thing that we need, because we need connection when we're scared.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so how long did the process, so you're in school, you're advancing in your training and education. How long did I know healing is continual, but
Mhm.
how long did it take you to get to the place where you really could you know
I don't yeah, I don't know if I can really, get to that point, but, there was a big turnaround point for me that I do remember, and it was a training that I went to. It was, I think it was after I might have been in my 4th year of schooling, and I was in as an intern, I was starting to meet with clients, and I was still getting triggered. I couldn't stay present with my clients. I was having a lot of difficulty. And my supervisor suggested going to a mind body training. And it was 5 days. And so I did that. And we would learn about the mind-body connection and how to administer this type of treatment. And then in the afternoons, we would practice on each other. We would pair up with another therapist. And every single day, I had these like huge breakthrough healing sessions connecting to my little 6-year-old. My little 6-year-old was when I was assaulted.
Yeah.
And that healing, it was connecting to her, being there, that reparenting process where I could say, I'm here for you. This is what happened. And I provided for myself what my mom couldn't do. And I was able to do that for myself. And that was the big turnaround for me, because when I got back from that training, I had the confidence that I could help people. Because I
Wow.
experienced it myself.
Yes. So you had to talk to the traumatized
Yes.
child in you and nurture her and
Yes.
talk to her and give her the love and the care that she needed in order to release
Mhm.
the adult, the
Mhm.
adult Dorothy. Wow. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Mhm.
that. So the importance of journaling and the importance of connecting the mind and body connection, of connecting to ourselves and having the conversation with the person in us that was traumatized at whatever stage, if it's at one stage or if it's at several stages, having those conversations in order to bring us into the now. And that's why I love the title of your book, The Journey from Surviving to Thriving.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so
'cause
what does thriving look like? What does that feel like in your body now, right? Not being in survival mode, but in a thriving position.
yeah, it feels great. It feels, gosh, it it feels like I'm not as scared anymore. Before, I'd say the big difference was I was scared all the time. I was scared of what people would think of me. I was scared of um getting close to people. I was scared of expressing my feelings. But now it feels comfortable. It feels freeing. I'm not so worried anymore.
Mhm.
And it's not that it's like floating on clouds, kind of calm and peaceful and easy, because there's growth and development going on, so that I still have to learn how to, face my fears of speaking, or face my fears of being honest and open about, what I've been through. But that's good. That kind of stress is good, and it's healthy, and it's needed for us to grow. Before, I think I was scared, so I sought that peace of
Yeah.
just like, I don't want conflict. I was a peacemaker. I
Yes.
was like, just peace. That's all I want. But that's not healthy. It produces anxiety and all kinds of emotional and mental problems. So now it's just more like life should be. It should be fun and exciting and challenging, and you know and failing and making mistakes and trying again and getting together with people that that will help me, and I can help them, helping each
Yeah.
other.
Absolutely. I want everyone to see how to get in touch with Dorothy. Her website is www.dorothyhusen.com. And as I mentioned, she is the author of Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma, My Journey from Surviving to Thriving. Please reach out to her and the resources that she has available at her website and her practice, because I tell you, if nothing else, we have learned during this season how important it is
Mhm.
for us to get in a position of thriving through trauma, because in essence, the pandemic is a trauma of
Mhm.
sorts, and managing and navigating that. So I so appreciate you sharing your story today, and I will look at breathing very differently from now on. So thank you for sharing that tool with us.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I am glad. Now, before we close today's program, is there one more nugget that you would like to leave us with?
I would say start today because it's
Oh,
never too late. I started at, like you said, in my late 40s and 50s. It's never too late. And my kids benefited so much as well, and they were adults. This transgenerational trauma passes until we break it and
yes.
intervene. And even though I started in my 50s and my children were adults, they have benefited greatly. So it's never too late. And start today with 1 minute of slow deep breathing.
I love it. Start today. Oh my gracious. Thank you so much. Look, I hope you got some great tools today about breaking the chains of transgenerational trauma, and I hope and encourage you to move from a posture of just surviving to thriving. Please be certain to visit Dorothy's website. Get her book. I am certain that it will bless your life. And thank you for joining us today on The Blueprint. And I look forward to seeing you next week.